I'm Michelle Bomberger, founder, managing attorney at Equinox Business Law Group. I probably know many of you who are on this call, but we host this monthly webinar series for our clients with a goal of just sharing information that's pertinent to running your business in a way that fosters growth and long-term success. Today, we're covering topics of workplace health and safety, specifically ergonomics and blue light effects. These are things that are not new. Deborah Read has been running her company with handling ergonomics for 20 years. And we've all been sitting in front of our computers for many, many years as well. So it's not new stuff, but I think it's come to the forefront with the COVID pandemic's work from home policies and the fact that we're spending more and more time maybe sitting in spaces that are less formulated for work. And certainly more time in front of our computers. So we're really excited to have Deborah Read from ErgoFit Consulting. Deborah had the 2020 Ergonomic Professional of the Year Award recently. And like I said, I've known her for many, many years as she's built up her company and been helping companies handling ergonomics, both from a work at home as well as internal workplace policies for many, many years. And Dr. Kara Hartel, who I've known for a few years now. Kara is a trained ophthalmologist from Harvard, worked in top hospitals, and has been practicing for 16 years. In the last few years, she has really begun to research this blue light effect of all these screens that we have, and has a wealth of knowledge, both very, very technical, which most of us can kind of grasp somewhat, but also very practical. And so both of them are here today to share their insights on what we can do as employers to not only do kind of the warm and fuzzy part of making our workplace feel good, but also the important part of ensuring the safety of our employees, which is a requirement under the law. There's a lot of things that we can do, and not all of them are super expensive, which I think is some of the concern here. And by implementing these things, you will have a workforce that's more engaged, and you will have a healthier workforce. So with that, just a couple of housekeeping. We are recording this program. The program will be posted on our YouTube channel within the next couple of days. You will also receive a copy of this via email. If you have questions throughout the program, please post them in the chat. We'll try to get to them, but if not, in the follow-up email, we will have Deborah and Kara provide some insights, and we'll also provide their contact information after the program as well. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand this over to Deborah to kick us off.
All right, thank you for the intro. I'm excited to get going here. All right, can you see?
Yeah, you just want to change it to the...
I am. Oh, okay, there we go. There's always that awkward delay. So thank you, everybody. We're going to talk about enterprise ergonomics, risk management today, both during and post-COVID, right? So we're kind of in that weird transition zone right now, but I am going to be focusing on the work from home and reopening kind of situations. But I do want to share, before I forget, that I believe very vehemently that the essential employees who've been busting their butts this whole time have had very significant ergonomic risk that's been boiling under the surface, and it has been largely invisible because they've been acting like heroes, quite frankly, you know, and sucking it up, to put it very bluntly, and not raising their hand and asking for help. So I think that this could cause major employer surprise and expense not too far down the road. So just a warning, a heads up, that discussion is for another day. Today we're going to focus on work from home and reopening. And also, before I forget, just jot this down. I do have a work from home ergonomic guidance manual that I will give you free if you email me, and just remember to do that. So I'll try to remember to say that again, and we'll try to put it in the follow-up. All right, so straight up, it's real important for you to understand that the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, our federal safety agency basically has a general duty clause that requires employers keep workplaces safe from known hazards. And ergonomics are known hazards. The science is overwhelmingly clear and abundant. And so you have to provide a safe workplace. And when it comes to citation, they're going to assess MSD related issues. The MSD is musculoskeletal disorder, They will start with an assessment, and it will come from 3 basic areas: worker complaints, referrals, or targeted inspections. Nobody's going to do a targeted inspection on your work from home employees, right? But here's what you would need to worry about is worker complaints. So you should be a little worried about that. We started seeing a dramatic uptick in worker complaints in 4th quarter last year. Actually, the end of 3rd quarter even. But what they'll do is they'll issue a citation or a letter, a hazard alert letter, if they think there's any legitimacy to it. And then they have a decision tree that they go through in order to cite. And so first, does the ergonomic hazard exist, yes or no? It probably does. Is it recognized? Obviously, yes. And is the hazard likely to cause, or is it directly causing serious physical harm? Again, it's almost like a foregone conclusion. The answer is going to be yes, because serious physical harm is defined as, I'm going to read this, it's a part of the body that is damaged so severely that it, A, cannot be used. Ergonomics probably won't cause that, or 2, cannot be used very well. Pretty much any musculoskeletal disorder will meet that second criteria, not being able to use it very well. If any of you have ever had a strain or sprain injury, you know what I'm talking about. Like it doesn't work very well, or you get tennis elbow, or carpal tunnel, or thoracic outlet, or we could go on and on, right? So anyway, and then the final question is there a feasible means or reasonable means to reduce the hazard? And I have to be very frank with you. Anytime there's an ergonomic risk condition, it's 99% of the time, it's reasonable from a fiscal standpoint and an effort standpoint. So you pretty much have to fix it. So that's like federal OSHA and how they make their decisions. And they also look at whether you're implementing. So good faith by itself is not good enough for OSHA. If you have a written corporate policy, right, that says all this great stuff about musculoskeletal disorder prevention and all this stuff, and it's just a written plan, and there's no actual effective implementation at the specific work site, you will get cited. So good faith and having written documentation is not good enough. And pre-COVID, about 30% of people were working from home, and we've been advising our clients, for years and years, to pay attention to the work from home people. Of course, only the best-in-class employers bothered to pay attention to it. Most made a decision to kind of block, put their hands over their ears and their hands over their eyes and like not deal with it and bury their heads in the sand. And, you can't do that anymore. It's just, there's too many people working from home. It can't be ignored. And you will be ignoring federal law and state law. So the good news is that implementation is easy. It honestly is easy. And I think a funding source could be the reduction in utilities that you have by not being fully in the office, the reduction in real estate footprint. There's all kinds of sources of money that you could divert into these efforts, right? So there's simple things like establishing ergonomic furniture standards and equipment standards. And yes, there might be a separate set of standards for home offices versus corporate offices. But don't rely on your vendors because they have an ulterior motive. Just remember that. So you want to work with someone who's going to represent your needs, not in the interest of selling product, right? And then, of course, education is absolutely mandatory. You have to have training, and you probably have to have, there's some commonalities between home office and corporate, but you may have to have some differences as well. And then having a safety net of virtual or on-site ergonomic assessments at whatever prevention level or like full ADA accommodation level, like anything in between. You want to definitely have a safety net if people need it. When you can, well, I'll get to that later. Sorry, I have to stick to my notes because I could go on and on. So yeah, that's about it. That's all I got to say. On state plans like Washington State, so any state plans who they have to meet or exceed the OSHA federal standards. Well, Washington State exceeds, and I have a direct line of contact. I'm very good friends with the head of all ergonomics for Washington State under the Washington Department of Labor and Industries Division of Occupational Safety and Health Group, otherwise known as DOSH. And I have been told very directly more than once that yes, employees can file a workers' comp claim while advancing employers' interests if they sustain an injury. So not during their breaks, but if they're working, then, there you go. They can do it, and they have. We have been doing some worker comp claims for work from home offices. And the work from home office is considered a site. So yeah, anyway, you're better off preventing that claim because your premiums are going to go up for 3 years, morale goes down, and you're going to spend a lot more money on the ergonomic fixes. So implementation and prevention is the way to go. I'll come back to that later. But let's look at what has happened since the pandemic. This was a little bit shocking to me. There was a national analysis looking at the first 3 quarters of 2020. 2020. And you can see that the percent of musculoskeletal claims was higher just in the 3 quarters, higher than the total annual spend of the prior 5 years. So higher than the whole year of 2015, 16, 17, 18, and 19, just in the first 3 quarters. And researchers are expecting an additional increase of 16% in musculoskeletal disorder claims from January this year, so a few months ago, through next June. So another 16% increase year over year and a half, basically, time period. That's alarming. It's a lot of money, so you're way better off preventing. The average ergo claim or MSD claim across the country is 17,000. I think it's more here in Washington State. I don't have that number on right now, but let me show you some of what this was based on, some of what's going on. So this was roughly a year ago. There was a US study and a UK study. They were large studies that were done, and 41% of work from home employees reported new or increased pain. Back, wrists, and shoulders were the primary ones. And most of them hadn't taken any steps to improve. And get this, the bulk of the people involved were in the lower age bracket, 20 to 35. And that's not what I think people would have expected. This is also the group that's most affected in their mental health. And I'm going to come back to mental health and how this connects to mental health as well a little bit later. So massive increases, 41% new or increased pain. In the UK, over 50% reported new aches and pains, neck, shoulder, and back. So people are suffering, and they're probably not raising their hand and asking you for help. And so you think everything's honky-dory when it's not. So you've got to find out, how do your people feel? This is sort of a plug. We do anonymous surveys if you're interested, so we can find that out for you. But this is a little bit frightening, and your employees are likely feeling the same. And so I kind of want to say, like, really? Meaning, is this really, you want your staff to just kind of wing it and figure it out all by themselves? They've been putting up with really bad situations at home for a long time. And these photos here in the middle are real. These are like some of the fun ones that were sent to me. You wouldn't believe some of what we've seen. It's shocking. But not only like, are you responsible for mitigating risk ultimately, there's an emotional piece here, an engagement piece. Like, how will your employees feel about you if you're not helping them figure this out? How will they feel about you? How loyal will they feel? How cared for will they feel? This is a representation of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And safety is at the foundation of a need that we have as human beings. Just being human. We need to feel safe. We need we need food and water and shelter, and we need safety. And then we need love and belonging, and then we can have self-esteem, and then we can be completely optimized and self-actualized. And that's kind of how it goes. You've got to have this really great foundation, and they need to feel safe. Your employees need to feel safe, and when you can help them be safe physically, they will emotionally feel safe. They will feel love and belonging. They will feel that you care, and then you will have an optimized workforce. So morale will improve, productivity will improve, retention, wellness, all of it will improve. It's truly critical to your operational excellence as an organization to address safety rather than do this, right? Rather than stick your head in the sand, look forward, survey people, find out how they're feeling, and deal with it quickly. So employees are scared and they're stressed, and they need to feel safe, not just at home, but also, also in the corporate office. So, employees are resisting returning because they may not feel safe. This is a super disgusting image for a reason. The sneeze can travel, I think, 60 feet. It's so gross. And people's perception is their reality. We have to remember that as employers, and I have employees too, and I'm thinking about these things too. Their perception is the reality. And what is their willingness going to be to return? What happens in the next COVID season? Be prepared to perhaps shut back down again for 2 months and return. We don't know. We don't really know, but that's a possibility. This issue isn't going away anymore now. I mean, it's all been in front of us so much. All right, so I wanted to just point out that over here in this little square over here, this 62% more sick days in open offices. This was a huge study of 2,400 employees, published in 2018, pre-COVID, open offices had 62% more sick days. Well, isn't that interesting? Because pre-COVID, this open office scenario was like the fashion trend for years, right? By 2014, about 70% of offices were open floor plans. From an ergo standpoint, all kinds of problems with open offices and the trendy furniture like this. Look at her slouching. Anyway, I could go on, but a shocking number of ergonomic issues with the current fashion trends in interior design and furniture. But what are the millennials and Gen Z groups going to be thinking about, like this stuff, right? Soft furniture, upholstered furniture. How do you clean that? Shared workstations. Anyway, I think there are a lot of problems with this, and it's all been exacerbated. And it isn't just the sneezing and all of that and splash guards and all that. It's also that this furniture generally hasn't even fit. This is one of the biggest ergo issues. It hasn't even fit everybody, right? So a lot of the furniture is built for large males, Caucasian males. So that's what this graphic is really just meant to convey to you, is that who is your workforce, right? Who are they? We have different body sizes by ethnicity, believe it or not. So even from just the physical stature standpoint, how are you going to accommodate everybody as you go forward? And how are you going to share workstations? There's a lot of messaging out there right now about shared workstations. Well, how? How are you going to accommodate a second percentile female up to a 98th percentile male? Or is it going to be 5th to 95th? And is it going to be Caucasian or Hispanic or Asian, or what's your demographic? Like, how are you going to have chairs that accommodate everybody at every single shared workstation? What about sit stand, right? What about the height of the desk itself? Finally, the furniture manufacturing industry lowered their new standard from 29 inches down to 28 inches. It's still not low enough for the majority of average and shorter sized women. It's still too high. So anyway, what are the adjustments that you're going to provide for people in order to successfully have shared workstations that don't cause harm? And then we can look at the cleaning, like the upholstered furniture I mentioned, and look at, this is me. Yep, that's me sitting on a modern, I'm 5'1". I am a 5th percentile Caucasian female. And this is me sitting with full back support, and look, my legs are straight out. So the only way I can sit at this cool looking upholstered modern piece of furniture is if I'm propped all the way to the edge with no back support, which makes it difficult to work with a laptop, et cetera, et cetera. So it causes ergonomic problems. But anyway, how are you going to clean upholstered furniture? How are you going to deal with shared keyboards and mice? Or are you going to ask people to cart theirs back and forth from home to the workplace? I don't know. These are just things to think about. And they're things that you need to create policies and protocols around very much. Same questions for sit stand. Okay. So our employees going to remember their optimal adjustments. So let's say I'm 5'1", and one of you out there in the audience is 6 feet tall. When you come and rent a car after I've turned it in, right? And you're the driver, you can't just get in after I'm done. You're going to have to make adjustments to the seat. So it's the same for employees. They're going to have to remember how they're supposed to set things up. We can help with that, or you can set up your own system to help them remember how to do that. And then how do you accommodate prior ergonomic modifications that have been made? So this is a legal piece that Michelle can talk about too, but accommodations, we have people who've had to get special chairs or special mice or special keyboards or whatever. What do you do with that? So I think you're going to have to consider some assigned seating. That's kind of interesting to figure that out. And maybe all seating should be assigned if you're going to have only part of the workforce at corporate office and part at home. And could there be a way to have assigned seating? I don't know. These are all things you got to think about diligently, and probably potentially repurposing all of your non-desk space. Yeah, these are things to think about. You're going to have to figure out where your gaps are and where your responsibilities lie. So these are some of them. You've got safety, policy, and protocol, which includes ergonomics, and that might be, again, it might be separate policies and protocols for home versus corporate office. It's certainly going to include training. I think you need to mandate training, honestly. Inclusion, I talked about different sizes of people. We have to talk about ADA accommodations. We have to talk about people. You have an older workforce too. 30% or 25 to 30% of the workforce is still on the older side, where we're over 40. And what if someone has had a hip replacement? How are they going to sit in those funky chairs, So inclusion is a big topic. And ergonomics has a role to play physically in physical inclusion. Your real estate, can you divert some of those funds for some of these efforts, like facilities, having 2 sets of keyboards and mice maybe, or having 2 sets of monitors. Like, how do you do that? 2 sets of chairs. How do you do that? How do you manage that inventory and those assets? And change management, of course, is huge. That's another webinar by itself too. So where are your gaps? Where are your responsibilities? And ultimately, are you going to decide as an employer, will you do nothing or will you take action? And the savvy employers are taking action. This was just released recently, this Willis Towers Watson survey with employers that had altogether over 6 million employees. So one of the highlights of, they called it a key finding, was that only 27% of employers are offering tools or programs to improve the physical well-being of employees. Now, granted, that's more than double last year, but still, it's completely insufficient. So are you going to be part of the 27%? Are you part of the 12%? Or are you going to go for it and be an employer who's best in class, right? I mean, ultimately, you're going to have to decide whether you're going to pay now for ergonomics or pay later. And the National Safety Council's work with CFOs has established very clear guidance that there's a exceedingly strong business case for ergonomics. Taking action in terms of prevention is going to cost you $1, and doing nothing by only reacting will cost you $2 to $45 for that same dollar. So, you know, doing nothing is going to absolutely cost you more. And that's really kind of what I have to share with you today. Don't forget to ask me for that work from home ergonomic guidance manual if you want it. How'd I do on time?
That's perfect. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
So it's amazing because I find that, you know, this has always been in the background. This is stuff that, you know, we all know that there's, you know, keyboards and desks and chairs and all these things that sort of just sit back there. And if someone asks for it or needs it, you know, people react to it. And, you know, what I heard is this is much more pervasive, not only because of COVID, but in part because of COVID, and that employers need to be paying attention. And so through, you know, policies, ensuring that people know that these things are available and taking those actions. It's not just the dollars out the door, which is I think how a lot of businesses look at it, but the opportunity cost of doing nothing as well. So
yeah, there's a really fascinating business, a number I'm going to throw out there. So when people are uncomfortable, right? They're physically uncomfortable, their neck, their shoulders, their back, their wrists, right? And these are the things that showed up on those surveys. And you don't know it, right? So you don't know that this is going on as the employer, and people are uncomfortable. What happens is they come off of their task, right? It's called time on task. So they take time off of their task to shake it out, rub it out, you know, wiggle around, whatever. Just by making people more comfortable. Forget injuries. Just by making people more comfortable, you are optimizing them a minimum of 2% more time on task, minimum. 2% more time on task, that number 2 doesn't sound very big, but when you translate it over the course of a year, it's a full week of work for every single employee. That's why ergonomics is a return. You get the payback period is like 2 to 3 months usually, sometimes 6 months. At worst, it's 2 years. So when you talk to CFOs with those kinds of numbers, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. The data is just, you know, so surprising sometimes, and it's great to see that. So I appreciate that. So now I'd like to introduce Dr. Kara Hartel, and her work on blue light is also incredibly fascinating. So Kara, I will hand it over to you.
Great. Good morning, everybody. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about blue light solutions. So let me briefly introduce myself. There we go. So my name is Dr. Kara Hartel, and I have been living up in Alaska for the past 13 years, living in extremities of light. So several years ago, I started studying what is this doing to my body. All night we have LED lights. Most of my house is LED lights with computer screens, TV screens. During the summers, it's bright all day long. These actually, believe it or not, light is actually biologically active. It changes our inherent biochemistry. And that's something that shocked me, that most people don't realize, that your internal biochemistry is actually very strongly regulated by light. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So today we're going to learn a couple things. We're going to learn what is blue light. We're going to have a very brief physics lesson. Why should we care about this? And then more importantly, what can we do about this? Because as soon as you realize how important this is, you're going to want a solution, and I'm going to give them to you at the end. So let's briefly talk today. What is blue light? So blue light is simply the part of the light spectrum, the light that comes from the sun, comes in, and there's a portion of that we can actually see. So everyone understands the concept that we can't see infrared, we can't see ultraviolet, right? So the insects can see these things, reptiles can see these, but we can't. It's because our eyes cannot see anything above or below the visible light spectrum. So the visible light spectrum, or the light from the sun, has enormous amounts of energy. So it starts all the way at gamma rays. So you can think about gamma rays as like the gamma knife that destroys brain tumors. People have heard of that. Huge energy. Like if you actually can use something to destroy a tumor inside someone's head, enormous amounts of energy. X-rays, we understand, everyone's heard of X-rays. Too much X-rays causes radiation. Radiation causes cancer. This is why X-ray techs have that little thing that says, I have this much exposure to radiation. X-rays, really powerful rays. Ultraviolet rays. We all understand ultraviolet rays because this is why we wear sunscreen. So if you have too much ultraviolet rays, then that causes skin cancers. So we intuitively understand that ultraviolet rays are pretty strong. They're pretty important. They can cause a decent amount of damage over time, dose dependent, right? So just below the ultraviolet rays are the blue rays. So this gets into the visible light spectrum. So these rays are pretty powerful. These rays can actually, they're just below the ultraviolet that cause skin cancer. So we need to understand that these visible light rays that we think about, like they actually have enough damage or enough power that they can hurt us. So you get all the way to the other end into radio waves, and we're not worried so much about those right now. Right now, we're talking about blue light. So why does this matter in terms of this new world that we're living in? And this is why. So our LED lights are specifically emitting blue light rays. So it doesn't look blue per se as we look at our screens, but these LED screens emit blue rays. So why is this important? Because these LED screens are everywhere. So this is the number of people who have these little devices. It has gone through the roof. We are constantly looking at our LED screens. So much so that it's not just us in the United States or the Western world. This is one of my favorite pictures. Sub-Saharan Africa, like these guys are looking at blue lights. So this is a ubiquitous device that has now just permeated the entire world, not just Western society. So why do we talk about this now? Why has this become such a big topic now? And it's because of this. I mean, we all know this. This is what has happened in the past 18 months of the pandemic. All of a sudden, we supersized our dose of LED screens. I know in my life I have, in my children's life, in the work from home life, everyone is now on the screens more consistently, more reproducibly, day in and day out, and also in the evenings more, which is important. You know, I don't know about you guys, but like this could easily have been my phone in terms of the amount of time I spend on my devices. Like this is everywhere. So understanding that this blue light actually carries with it energy, and that energy we are staring at all day long, all day, every day, and that this energy actually has biologic activity to our body. This is an important understanding. This is our physics lesson. The test will be later. So let's talk about why we should be caring about this. So there's a couple of reasons. The first one is our eyes. This is my field, so this is close to my heart. So why does this matter in our eyes? Because our eyes are really good at protecting us from the ultraviolet. It's really good at it. So the higher energy is actually absorbed by our cornea, which is the front part, by the lens, which is the part in the middle. But the blue light, because of course we can see it, it has to get all the way into the back of the eye. Otherwise we wouldn't be able to see it. So that blue light, as it gets all the way into the back of the eye, it hits the retina, and that retina actually absorbs that blue light. Similar to how our skin absorbs the ultraviolet, our retina absorbs the blue light. And it does similar things to what ultraviolet does to our skin. It changes the cellular structure of our eye. Unfortunately, the scary part is that this is in the same pathway of a really common blinding condition called macular degeneration. So macular degeneration, we think of as something that happens in old people, but the blue light that we're looking at right now is actually causing this oxidative damage to the back of our eye, to our retina, in a pathway that we know results in macular degeneration in cell cultures, in animal models, even in monkey models. We know that this is actually causing damage. We don't actually know what's going to happen in human models because we're not allowed to do that study, by the way. We're not allowed to dose dependent somebody and then cut their eyeball open. But we're going to know because we're in the epidemiologic study right now. And in 20 or 30 years, after we've been staring at these screens, which by the way, we've already been doing for about 15 years. So when we have that dose dependence, we don't know yet what's going to happen. We're not going to know for another 15 or 20 years when we've already been doing this for a long time. And by the way, that damage, it's irreversible. This on the left is what a normal retina looks like. You're going to have to take my word on this one, but you can tell pretty clearly that if the left is what normal looks like, the right is not normal. And unfortunately, this is actually an irreversible damage. So we potentially right now, again, we don't know 100% because we're in that epidemiologic study, similar to how smoking 70 years ago, nobody had any idea what was going to happen. But in hindsight, well, clearly it causes cancer. Similarly, like all the animal models are telling us this is probably really bad for our eyes, but this is going to be an irreversible change once it happens. And what that means functionally is that left, again, is a normal eye. That right, that's what it looks like when you have macular degeneration. So this is a legit problem that the world is starting to appreciate and understand. This is why this entire secondary industry has developed around the concepts of blue blocking things, screen protectors, glasses. Like the world is now understanding that, geez, maybe we need to pay attention to this. And these energy rays actually probably are going to cause damage to us. And so an entire industry has developed around this concept in the past 5-10 years, but really 5 years. And of course, now everyone's talking about it because of the amount of the dose dependence. The dose has gone through the roof. So if we have a dose dependent disease and we just drastically upped the dose, now we need to worry about that disease state. The other thing I want to briefly talk about is Zoom fatigue. So this is tangible. This is something everybody feels at the end of the day. We've talked about this, Michelle and I, we've talked about this plenty. This is not hard to understand. At the end of the day, your eyes are tired. You feel like this headache. I mean, everybody feels this at the end of a 9, 8, 9, 10 hour day on screen. Like this is what's going on. So why is this happening? I'm going to tell you the quick biology behind it, and then I'm going to tell you the easy solutions for this. The first thing is our eyes are being focused to our screen. So instead of looking at distance, which is a relaxed state for our eyes, these little muscles inside our eyes are changing the shape of our lens to be able to focus up close. This, by the way, is what you lose when you end up in reading glasses because you can't change the shape of your lens anymore, but you will try to change that shape all day long. And imagine if you're holding a book on your arm all day long. Well, you know what happens? Your arm gets tired. And so similarly, those little muscles inside our eyes, they get tired. And so they ache just like every other muscle would ache. You also, as you're staring and having focus on a computer screen, your intensity of that focus decreases your blink response. And so if you don't blink as much, you know what? Your eyes dry out. They just simply dry out. So you also have then the irritation from that blue light and from the ultraviolet lights that are all around us, especially that blue light, similar to a sunburn, for lack of a better analogy. It causes a topical irritation to your eyes because those energy waves are hitting your eyes. So this is the main reasons for this Zoom fatigue, and there are super easy answers for it, and I'll tell you those in a minute. Number 2, why should we care about this? Because this light affects our bodies in such a dramatic way, people don't understand it or appreciate it. What it does is it dramatically decreases our ability to have high quality and high quantity sleep. So sleep, people probably understand a little bit that these like tablets and like being on our phones and on our tablets late at night alters our sleep cycle. Well, it completely does. So sleep is one of the most important things that life has. And it's not just us, it's everybody. Every living creature sleeps to some degree. Even plants sleep, although we're not going to go there. But all of the mammals, let's go to the easy part because we're mammals. Every mammal needs to sleep. Why do we sleep? Because that is how our body actually regenerates. So our body needs that sleep time to repair the cellular damage that happens with simply being alive. So it's so important that our entire bodies are designed around this thing called a circadian rhythm. So we are genetically programmed to sleep during certain times, be awake during certain times. Our body functions differently throughout the day. Even more so, the quality of the sleep actually matters as well. We have different stages. People understand this. Deep sleep, REM sleep, light sleep. There's reasons that those things exist and they have different biologic activities in our bodies. I'm going to recommend a book here. It's called Why We Sleep. If you read this book, you will never again think that you can go on a 4-hour sleep night and be perfectly fine. It's incredible. Strongly encourage. I actually listened to it on Audible at 2 times speed. It was one of the best things that I've ever done. Strongly, strongly recommend this. It will make your quality of life dramatically better. And one of the things it talks about is light and how light impacts your sleep, among other things. But there is no question we're biologically programmed to be awake in the day and asleep at night. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of what this does and how it actually works. Again, right back to the eyes, which is why I'm here talking to you, because that blue light that we're talking about is actually absorbed by a little pigment in the back of the eye called melanopsin. That melanopsin is what controls the melatonin cycle, that is what controls the beneficial improvements of sleep. Believe it or not, melatonin is one of the most crucial biochemical effects in our body. It literally repairs your DNA. It alters your cellular integrity. It is associated with things like your fight or flight reflex, which is the sympathetic nervous system. This pathway is involved in memory formation, in social anxiety and depression. It's associated with virtually every aspect of your body, and it is specifically targeted by blue light. In fact, that little wavelength right there, the 460 nanometer, that is the wavelength that is absorbed by melanopsin. So when you are looking at your screens in the evenings, you are triggering that melanopsin to say, hey, it's light, it's bright out, it's daytime, you're supposed to be awake. And so when you then try to go into your sleep cycle, it doesn't work. Your melatonin cycle doesn't work because you just told your body to stay awake. We need to tell our body, geez, it's time to sleep. Let's look again at the light here, bright, bright light, back to dim yellow light. This is not, there's a reason that our body responds to these light colors, and it's because of exactly this. It's because that little gene has been programmed, evolutionarily designed to say, time to sleep, there's no blue light anymore. Look at that beautiful yellow sunset. It's time to go to sleep and repair all of the damage that you had from simply being alive. Now, I'm going to tell you this really, really, really busy slide here. I don't want you to look at this. I want you to simply realize that this is the list of things that are impacted by poor sleep quality. And I'm going to show you that it's everywhere. It's not just your brain. It's not just your heart. It is associated, poor sleep quality is associated with everything from depression, anxiety, poor memory formation, Alzheimer's, diabetes, weight gain, hypertension, stroke, cancer. We know that, in fact, so much so that the World Health Organization has described nocturnal light exposure as a flat out carcinogen. We know in people who do night work that their altered circadian rhythm, which alters their melatonin pathway, melatonin is a fixer of DNA and it scavenges free radicals that cause cellular damage, that when you don't have that appropriate pathway, your cancer risk is higher, flat out across the board. People who have sleep disorders, they die earlier of all causes. Like understanding the importance of sleep and understanding the importance of how blue light alters your sleep is absolutely crucial. So I can tell you all of that. Fundamentally, we know that after a bad night's sleep, we look like this. Like we've all been there, we've all done this. So when that guy shows up to work, by the way, he's not working very well. He's not doing a good job. So more importantly, sleep deprivation when you have it, so this is like an 80% sleep deprivation, like you got 2 hours of sleep last night, you feel like garbage. What if you got 20% worse sleep? What if you were even in bed for 8 hours, but because you altered your pathways, your REM sleep and your deep sleep, the percentages weren't adequate. So we actually can alter our sleep quality in addition to our sleep quantity by inappropriate use of blue light. So this is a really big deal to us as business owners because this is the cost of sleep deprivation. It is really, really expensive because that guy up there, even at 20% sleep loss, he didn't perform the way he was supposed to. When we've been there, right? I mean, I've had really bad night's sleep. And by the way, I don't do as well. I don't function as well when I am tired. This is not a shocker. Everybody understands this because we personally have experienced this. But the cost of this is enormous. So more importantly, you're here for the answers. So this is where you need to pay attention. So hopefully you understand that blue light affects our eyes significantly. It really affects our sleep and everything associated with that. So now I'm going to tell you how we can prevent this from happening. So quickly, the long and the short of it is technology needs to fix the problems that technology created. This is a technology created problem. So we have an entire industry that is coming out right now specifically designed to fix this problem. Technology is doing this. So we have 3 easy steps I'm going to tell you today. The first, protect your eyes. The second, protect your body. And then for us business owners, we're going to protect our business. So number 1, protect your eyes. I don't know how many people that I've talked to that say, oh yeah, look here, I have my blue blocking glasses, but you know what? They're not on your face. So if your blue blocking glasses aren't on your face, they're doing nothing for you except being a sweet little desk ornament. So blue blocking glasses and wearing them day in and day out, that's really annoying. And so a lot of people just flat out don't do it. So I strongly encourage, get a blue blocking screen cover. This blocks the high level blue, like the strongest level blue lights. So it doesn't really alter your screen covers or your screen tones all that much. It doesn't make everything look wonky and yellow because you're really blocking the really high energy ones, which don't alter your perception of color all that much. These are a couple of great options out there. There's lots of them out there. The more I talk about this, the more companies call me and say, hey, include mine. Hey, include mine. But there's a lot of science behind this. Just get a screen cover. It's $25 to $50 depending on your answers, but this is a one and done solution. So, for my vice this year has been DoorDash. So if I get one less DoorDash and instead I use that money to buy a screen cover that possibly prevented me from going blind, definitely actually made the answers work. Like, all right, this is low hanging fruit. This is really easy decisions. Buy a blue blocking screen cover. It's a one and done. Don't think about it anymore. You're done. Your eyes are safe. Zoom fatigue. This one is a really easy solution again. 3 different things. So what you can do is you can actually change the focus point of your eye. So your eye actually simply focuses at the computer length. This is ballpark plus 150. So if you get some plus 150 computer glasses, if you wear glasses, get a set of computer glasses that are designed, it's plus 150 over whatever your prescription is. Your eye doctor or your optometrist can do this easily. So what that's doing is it's relaxing that muscle that is constantly trying to focus up close. It just relaxes it. You're welcome to try the 20-20-20, where every 20 minutes you look up for 20 seconds at 20 feet. But like, let's just be honest, that's really not going to happen. That's really hard to do. And so in reality, just hack the system, get some glasses that focus you and relax that muscle inside your eye. Second, use some lubricating eye drops. So just put some little lubricators right next to you, schedule them 4 times a day, just put a drop in, don't think about it. It's kind of like when you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated. So if you just put the drop in your eye as part of prevention, you'll never have the irritation. So these answers, really easy. It's a one and done answer, piece of cake. Protecting your body from your circadian rhythm, it's a little bit harder. It's a little bit more annoying, but the impact is enormous. I cannot emphasize enough. First thing, you want to harness the benefit of blue light. Go outside, get full spectrum sun. The amount of blue light that comes from the sun is massive. So use that to help yourself wake up, like get energized. It's like a giant, massive cup of coffee right out of your front door. So utilize that to help wake yourself up, set your circadian rhythm, say, hey body, it's time to be awake. And you really need to have low blue light before bed. Think of the sunset, it's yellow. So in order to not have blue, it needs to be yellow. So if you want to use your computer during the hours before bed, which is fine, I do it too, really focus on changing the colors that are coming out of it. You can change them from, putting on night mode. There's a fantastic free app called Flux or f.lux. It's at justgetflux.com. It really turns things yellow. Turn the volume of your light down. You can get yellow blocking glasses, but they need to be yellow. They're not like the little blue ones that don't look like they're actually yellow. Those ones aren't helping you. They're not getting the right wavelength. They need to be yellow. My favorite is Melanin Products. They have a fantastic, it's a medical device. It's about $160. It's expensive, but it's a great pair of glasses. It's really comfortable to wear. Has science behind it. It's an FDA approved medical device specifically for this. It's brilliant. Couldn't encourage that enough. You can also just get a pair of yellow glasses. So why are we doing this? Because it is really expensive to us if we don't. Really expensive. So I want to talk to you a little bit about this great study from the Harvard Business Review. So a gentleman right out of University of Washington, Dr. Christopher Barnes, did a couple studies using yellow blocking glasses for, just a study. So as one group, as the control group, got no yellow glasses, and then the treatment group got these yellow glasses. They said, wear these at nighttime. Okay. So they did this, and the results were incredible. They had, 8 to 9% higher work engagement. People were better. They were better employees. They were better teammates. They were happier, healthier, more engaged. They were self-reported themselves as doing a better job. 9% higher customer service scores. People liked them more. They worked harder. They worked better together. Customers liked them more. This is literally like a 10% ROI on a pair of $50 glasses. You want to do the really good stuff, $160 glasses. But the ROI on this is legit. Imagine if something that small could actually give you a 10% higher workforce. Okay, that's a really easy return on investment for a very small investment. Not to mention the taking care of your employees and all of the goodwill that goes along with doing that. But just the hard numbers, this is a really good ROI. Having people who are healthy, happy, and well slept matters. So in conclusion, here are my answers. I use the Redicare screen cover because it has a little bit more yellow blocking, a little bit more protection. Use any of the screen covers. This is what I actually do. So I'm happy to give you all these answers, but this is where I'm going to conclude now. These are my biohacks, my solutions, what I do for myself, for my employees, for my family, and it makes a difference. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kara. I mean, I've heard this before, and every time I take something new away, and one of the things that I really value about this particular panel is that both, Deborah and Kara are business owners themselves, and so the perspective is not only the, third party, here's what you should do, or selling you something, but rather sort of this boots on the ground, here's what the world looks like, not only from what we should do for mental health and physical health, but also for business health. And so I really like the fact that you included that, Kara, because I think it's a really important part of what we should be thinking about as business owners, because employee retention, employee productivity and engagement is really, really important to having a successful company in the longer term. So if you could stop sharing real quick, I will wrap up with a couple of other items. Thank you. And I want to say thanks to both of you for joining us this morning with your incredible insights and expertise. Here's some the contact information for each person who's participated. Feel free to reach out with any questions that you may have. And then for our upcoming, upcoming programs, we do this every month. June 17th, our program is on diversifying your business ecosystem. We have talked with a number of businesses that are looking for a greater impact in the DEI and diversity space. And hiring is one piece, but beyond that is how else can we ensure that our business is reaching out and having diverse perspectives in the full ecosystem. So we have a panel coming up on that one. July 15th, you may have heard we've got new tax plan being contemplated in Washington, both Washingtons, with the capital gains tax here as well as at the federal level. So we'll have a CPA, now that they've finished up their extended tax season, join us in July to talk about what to expect and how to think about this from a business standpoint. And then many of you have probably heard of the Long-Term Care Trust Act that just have been kind of finalized. It's been in effect for a little while, but what does that mean for your business? There are some deadlines coming up, and so in August we'll talk with you about how to think about this for different levels of employees, and more specifically as business owners, what does this mean for you? So that's what we have coming up in the next few months. Again, Deborah and Kara, thank you so much for joining us. Just such a pleasure to hear both of you guys speak and bring your expertise to the table.
Thanks.
Have a wonderful day, and you'll expect an email from us with the recording and any questions that we can follow up with.
Thank you.